Chris Pies here with another PCA Sim Racing Classroom. This week we are going to be tackling Laguna Seca in the 992 GT3R. So we will do that. I've already got a replay set up so we can bring it up and walk through it. But yeah, we were just talking, Jacob Shube and I were sitting here talking about kind of what has changed between the old 991 GT3R and the new one. And Jacob, you were saying that you haven't run this car yet. So
Yeah.
the big thing, as we were talking just before I hit the record button, the big difference between the two is just the 992 just is more stable everywhere. And it's kind of like you would expect that. Because what are the advantages of the 911? It's that engine in the rear over the big fat rear tires, right? So coming out of quarters, whenever you're basically on power, the 992 should be like just the most stable car out there. Other cars like the Merc or any car with a front engine rear wheel drive setup should be the opposite, right? It should be the most tail happy under power because there's less weight back there. So, I mean, it follows that the 992 is just super stable. But in my opinion, right now, at least with iRacing and what we've got, the 992 is just kind of like the go-to car if you want stability. It's good over curbs. It's predictable. It's a lot of fun to drive. So, if you haven't driven it yet, you should definitely try it. You'll love it.
Yeah, I'll be putting in some practice for this Thursday's race.
Oh, for
So
sure.
I'll definitely be hopping on in the
Cool.
car. Yeah.
So, oh, did I don't think I'm sharing on Discord yet. So hold on.
No, not yet.
Let me hit the button. There we go. Cool. So we'll just take Laguna Seca. And if you have any questions, just stop me right away and we can have a
All right.
conversation. But yeah, I mean, Laguna Seca, it's one of those tracks that's been around in iRacing forever, right? It's one of the first ones that ever was added. There hasn't been a whole lot of updates to it. And so this is kind of brand new car on very old track. So most people have tons of time, tons of laps here, but not necessarily in this car combination because the car is relatively new. So we'll go through it, but it'll be a relatively quick track walk because of that, because of the familiarity most people have with the track. But we'll do what we can to figure out, kind of some of the things we need to think about on the way through here. So the big thing coming into turn one is that it is not a straightaway. We obviously go over start finish, which is considered the front straight, but it is anything but. We have this kink to the left, a double kink to the left, and that we have to treat like a corner. So I like to basically apex right there underneath the flag stand, underneath the bridge, to try to keep the track as short as possible without turning the wheel too much. The more we turn the steering wheel, the more our front wheel scrub and the less rate of acceleration we achieve. The goal going into the Andretti hairpin, I think that's what it's called, is everything is all about the second apex. There's multiple ways through this corner. Basically, ask anybody and they'll give you
Why not?
different answers. Yeah, you can have a really wide line entry and have a single apex, which would be the second apex. You can have a double apex where you're apexing the first turn and then you're also apexing the exit. Um, you can keep it tight and kind of just treat it like a carousel if you really wanted to. That's probably the slowest, but it's the safest in terms of defense to prevent somebody from getting underneath you. So lots of different ways. I tend to try to make it a double apex when I'm racing, but understanding, and I know that probably the theoretical fastest way around here is to make it a single apex, that last apex. So I guess for my advice is just basically whatever you do in the first half of the corner, the goal is to be at the second apex very late around the corner. And I'll show you exactly where that is. So if we take it like I normally do, my brake marker is usually, depending on the car and depending on the track state, right about the floorboard. If the track is super sticky or it's a little bit of a slower car, you can get away with getting all the way down to this white line. But somewhere between the floorboard and the white line tends to be a pretty reasonable spot for most cars. I try to use all the entry that I can, so I take it as nice and wide as possible, meaning I am all the way out here in this runoff under braking in a relatively straight line. because we need to slow the car down. So not only are we setting the car up from a balance perspective, we also got to slow the car down. So braking pretty hard, and then as I start to turn in, like every corner that's like this, I'll start to trail off the brakes. So I've already started my turn in. I'm trailing off the brakes, so I've gone from about 80% down to maybe 40%. And then right at around the first apex, I'm basically off the brakes, and I'm going to start transitioning to the gas at some point. Laguna Seca is really good for visuals because you've got these big red sausage curbs throughout the track, and they represent kind of the standard apex. So like the true apex of the corner, the midpoint of the corner. It's not necessarily the place we want to apex our turn in the race car, but it's a good visual to say, hey, where's that red curbing? I want to be somewhere in that neighborhood when I hit the apex of the corner. For this corner, I try to apex after the red sausage, as you can see here. So I'm apexing around the corner, basically around late apex, and then I'm starting to pick up throttle a little bit on the way, just to kind of get a little bit of a squirt. Otherwise, I will slow down too much. And then I'm back on the brakes again to try to settle that front end down a little more, keep that nice front end tucked, start to get on throttle really early. And the whole goal of this turn is to be here after the red sausage. We want to be accelerating around the corner, so driving through the corner. The only way we can get to that point right there is we have to be very patient on the car and get the car to rotate mid-corner as best as we can. And then when we get the car fully rotated, we know we're going to hit that apex point after this red sausage. Then we can start getting on the throttle and start accelerating. The earlier you can get on throttle in between these two apexes and still make the corner at the end, the faster the run out of the corner and the faster the corner will ultimately be. If you're finding yourself getting to this point and you're staying on the brakes, somebody else is going to be already accelerating, increasing their speed, and they're going to catch you before turn 3 down the road. So the goal is to get on the accelerator, drive through the corner, super late apex, so we can get a good run. Now, I dipped a couple of my right side tires just in the dirt. It was not a 1X. So long as you keep your left side tires inside the white line, you're good. Coming up to turn 3, my marker is the 2 board. It's pretty much the 2 board almost for every single car, with some exceptions. So I'm looking for the 2 board. I want to get the car as far over to the left as I can to kind of set up for this sweeping right-hander. Again, we're looking for the red sausage curb as our general idea of where we want to apex the corner, but we want to apex after the actual sausage. So we look in, nice wide entry. It's slower than you think. It's always my tendency, and every time I get to Laguna Seca after having not driven it for a while, is to get on the throttle too soon through this right-hander, and then I end up just pushing wide and putting 2 tires in the dirt on the exit. We want to be very patient, very late, and as you can see here, my apex point is pretty much right at the back end of the red sausage curbing, and then back on full throttle and ride it through, much like turn 2. So long as we keep our right side tires on the tarmac, it's all good. We will not get a 1X. Turn 4, a lot like turn 3, except it's much faster. So turn 3 and turn 4 are almost, they're very similar to each other. They look very similar, but they have their own distinct characteristics. With turn 3, you have to be very patient before you can get on the throttle and wait. Turn 4 is super fast. In 4th gear, we turn in, late apex, late sausage. So I'm apexing after the red curbing. And then if we do it right, we're back on throttle really early and carrying that speed through the corner all the way to track out. So let's back up and show you what this looks like. So as we come in, it's just a little dab of the brakes on entry just to set the front end. And then once it's set, boom, full throttle, maintain our speed. My min speed through there is 100 miles an hour. Ride it all the way through. If we do it right, we'll be on full throttle before apex and we won't even get into the dirt. If you're finding yourself dipping 2 tires out in the dirt consistently out here, what's going on with the tendency, what that suggests to me is that you're turning in too early for the corner and you're not being patient on the initial turn in. So you'll turn in, get back on throttle way too soon. Apex maybe right here is your apex point. And then what ultimately happens with that early apex is your car is on a trajectory to be out in the dirt. It can't turn. You don't have enough room. So later apex. The big thing about almost every single curve here at Laguna Seca is super late apexes, late apex, late apex. Coming into turn 5, we've got this nice, good visual coming in here. We've got this big, bold bridge above us to show that we're about to hit the braking marker. I use this white line right here, just between the 3 and the 2 board, as my brake marker. So brake at the white line, straight line braking, it's threshold braking. And then as we start to turn in to the left, we're looking for that red sausage. So there it is. We want to get down on the curb relatively soon, but ultimately we want to keep the car at it. We want the car to apex after the red curbing. So we turn in. My apex point is somewhere right here, just after the red curbing. I could have gone a little bit more on this particular run, but we want to use all this curbing. It's nice and smooth. If we do it right, we can get on throttle really early coming through here, 3rd gear, and then we can run all the way to the edge. Careful to mine the dirt on the exit. The nice thing about turn 5 is it's faster than you think it is because of all the camber. So turn 3 and turn 4, there's almost no camber to speak of. It's relatively flat. But if you look right here, look how much track we can see at apex. I mean, we can see the entire width of the track. That tells us that it's angled towards us. It's the only way we can see it, meaning that we want to take advantage of that camber, that bowl, and get down to as close to the apex where we can get the maximum camber to help us turn the car. Any questions through there? All good? Oh, we got some more people. Hi. Hey, guys. Cool.
Chris, I noticed you're not using the Laguna pipes.
No, I'm not. I'm screaming these things out straight out back. What Steve means by that is there is a noise restriction at Laguna that is infamous, and I forget which turn it's at. Is it down here at the end of this?
Back up a little bit. Just back up 20 feet.
Oh, is it like right here?
It's that house right there in front of you.
Oh, this thing right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a decimal meter right here that if you hit a certain decibel, they will kick you out because they can't run any louder than that. So what people do is they tend to put pipes facing to the left, like ridiculous looking Japanese style. I forget what that car culture thing is, where these pipes stick straight out to the left to try to keep the noise as far infield as possible, just to cheat the system so they don't trigger the decibel limit here. Some people will lift. Some people will come through here and delay their acceleration point later, knowing that they're too loud. And then once they get past that up a ways, then they'll get back on the throttle. So I think the standard GT4, my first generation GT4 with stock exhaust, actually breaches the limit at Laguna Seca, which I find hilarious. So a stock vehicle, street vehicle. Anyway. Okay, so coming through turn 5 and screaming down to, in my opinion, the most difficult turn in all of iRacing. Yeah, it's a bold claim, and I stand by it. I hate this corner. It's arguably one of the most important corners, if not the most important corner on the track, because we've got a relatively decent length straightaway leading up to it, and then we've got the longest straightaway going uphill coming out of it. So you basically have to be as perfect as possible through this corner. And if you're not, if you're slow through this corner, your lap times are going to suffer. So I guarantee you, if your lap times are not where they want to be, you could probably pick up the most amount of time through turn 6. And so hopefully I can show something that'll help. I always, going through turn 6, take a deep breath because it's scary. So what makes turn 6 so difficult is it's completely blind until your turn in point. You basically can't see anything until you've got to turn in. And then by that point, if you wait until you can see the apex, it's too late because the car is going too fast and you'll miss it. And if you turn in too early, there's a big sausage curb that will kill your car and basically knock you out of the race. So you got to be perfect, as close to perfect as possible to maximize the speed going through here. So I'm looking at these little boards on the right side. I'm looking for the 2 boards specifically. What I'm going to do is I'm going to brush the brake coming into the 2 board to get the weight on the nose of the car to help get a good turn in, and then get off the brake as soon as I turn in. So I've turned in right after the 2 board. So basically right where this little crest is, I've already started my turn in point. So if you need another visual, maybe this white line will help. But I'm not looking here. I'm looking, trying to find the apex, but I initiate my turn in before I can see it. And then at this point, you're a passenger. Like there's not a whole lot you can do once you've turned the car in to try to help you. What's going to end up happening is you're going to crest this little bit of a hill, which means whatever grip you had on the way going in on your initial turn is going to vanish. So the car is actually going to understeer at this point. So you have to build that into your turn in. If you turn in thinking the car is going to stay turning in at the same rate, you're going to have the same amount of grip at the front end of the car, you're going to miss the apex every single time. So it always feels like you're turning in too early for this corner, but as soon as you crest this hill, the car front end washes out and you end up perfect at the apex. So at this point, I'll be able to see the apex. I get off the brake and I start picking up throttle to settle the rear of the car because look at all this camber we have right here at the apex point of the corner. So we go from good turn in to understeer to coming up to apex, good turn in again. So the car goes through 3 different states in this short little period at the beginning of this corner. And practice and repetition is the only way to really kind of ingrain that feeling of when I got to turn in, what the car is going to feel like, and trust it that it's going to be okay. The fast way through here is basically what I do. I mean, I am within a millimeter of this red curbing. We don't want to touch the curbing. If we touch the curbing, the car will bounce up and we'll end up in the tire wall on the right, or we'll spin. And if we don't get down to the curbing, if we leave ourselves too much room, then we're leaving time out on the track. And sometimes it can be half a second through this corner alone. But if we do it right, we're basically at full throttle at apex like I am here. And we hold that all the way through, all the way up the uphill on the straightaway. The other thing to be very mindful of is that when you compress right there, the car, depending on your setup, may grind, and you may actually end up getting some understeer because of the bottoming out. So check your setup. If you're doing extensive grinding like this too much, then you may want to raise your right height just a touch to try to avoid it. But the apex point on this particular corner is right at the red curbing. So everything we've been saying about, late apex, we want a late apex here as we can. But in reality, the apex point for this curve is pretty much right in the middle of the red curbing. If we get a good run through there, 4th gear, it takes us all the way up this hill. This is a good opportunity to get a good run on somebody going through turn 6 to go up the hill. And then our brake point is going to be somewhere about halfway between this white line and the curbing up here on the way up. As you can see, we cannot see anything past the 3 board at the top of the hill leading into the carousel. Or not the carousel, the corkscrew. But we can, it's not going to go anywhere. So again, like I said, brake in a straight line, as straight as we can. About mid-track, going from, I connect the 2 curbings basically together. So curbing to curbing, there's your brake zone, this nice straightaway, this nice straight little angle right here. And then I'm aiming the car basically right here over this curbing, apexing close to the dirt, but braking all the way up. Understanding that as I crest this hill, the car is going to get light. I'm not going to have the same ability to brake coming up over the hill. It doesn't matter quite as much in a car like this with ABS because ABS will figure it out. But if you're like in a cup car or something without ABS, you have to come out of the brake because of the lack of traction you have right at the crest, and then potentially get back on the brake when you land on the backside of the hill. So that's what my tendency is, just because that's built into me. I let off the brake when the car gets light because I lose traction. But then I get back on the brake coming up when I stop at the top of the hill to try to get my last little braking done and get the weight back on the nose to turn in for the corkscrew. So if I back it up a little just to show you that brake zone again, coming up the hill, straight line between the 2, brake about halfway through, off the brake, back on the brake, entering into the corkscrew. If I've done it right, I'll be right around here, track right for this entry into the corkscrew. I'm in 2nd gear. I don't like 1st. You can go into 1st, but I just find that it puts too much torque through the rear tires, and the tendency to get oversteer when I go back to throttle is too much. We're going downhill. Gravity's helping us. There's no point in revving this car out at this point. So I like 2nd gear because of that. And then what my goal is here between the 2 is I'm trying to apex at the dirt on the left-hander here. There's no red curbing here to help us out. but I'm apexing pretty much right in the middle, right here at the dirt. So I turn in second gear. There's my first apex, pretty much at the steepest part of the corner right here. And then at this point, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for these trees that are right in front of us. These trees are going to be my visual for the second apex down the hill on the right-hander. I cannot see it. It's completely blind. But if I can keep my front of my car left of this tree right here, this single one that's out here, then I'll be good. If my car is pointed right at this tree or right of this tree, I'm going to cut the corner and I'm going to be in the gravel and I'm going to get a slowdown. So again, the goal is right here, pretty much right through between the two trees and the single tree, with the favoring a little bit right around here close to the right tree, and turn in and apex it. It just feels like when I'm going through there, it's like a break, turn in, find those trees, straight line it, and then once the car comes down off that straight line, my hands are straight, and then as it comes down and it compresses in the hill, then I do the other turn. So you can actually see right here, my hands are straight just for a moment, and then once I get on the tree, then I can start turning the corner to the right in second gear. My throttle pedal is pretty much planted through here, because if I do it right, I want that back end to be planted. So right there, as soon as I finally see that final apex after I come over this hill, I've got a lot of throttle already, but then at that point, boom, bury the throttle. We have this camber that's helping us out coming out, and then we just keep our hands nice and quiet, let the car run and do what it wants to do on the exit. Don't try to force anything through there, because that's where people can tend to spin if they really try to muscle and just overdrive the car coming through out of the corkscrew. The tendency is once the car finally hooks up and gets all its grip back on the bottom of the hill, the back end will just loop around. So we want to allow the car to kind of allow us to open our hands and let the traction come to us through there without having to try to, we don't want to force it and pinch that last corner to try to move the car to the right. There's no point. I'm going to show what it looks like in first person through here too, because it's so unique. So again, coming up the hill, can't see anything. Our brake marker is after the curbing, before the next curbing. So I tend to hit the brakes when I can start to see blue right here, but your driving position may be different than me, so don't rely on that. Find one that looks for you. But at this point, I see blue. Okay, I can start getting on the brakes. Keep the car to the right side and wait for a late apex on this first left-hander. There's the dirt, so I'm trying to drive the car basically over left side tires touching the dirt right here. Immediately at this point, I'm looking for my tree. So there's my tree. So I know I've got to get the car left. My driving eyes need to be, front end of the car needs to be left of this tree. So boom, right there. I'm left of the tree. At this point, I start transitioning from going left to right, adding throttle all the way down. Still can't see the apex. Boom, there's the apex. Once I see the apex, full throttle, and then let the car run out to the left and add traction by opening my hands. All right, coming through this double left-hander, single left-hander, just a wide left-hander, you have all sorts of camber changes through this corner. It's kind of crazy, and there's lots of lines. The traditional line is a nice wide entry like this. So when you first turn into this corner, you're going downhill, but you have a little bit of camber helping you. So the track is sloped to the left, and we're about to go left, so it's helping us turn a little. After the initial entry, the track really flattens out, and we're going downhill. So all of a sudden we get understeer. Then we get more camber at about the apex point, so it helps us turn. And then the track completely straightens out, all while going downhill, so we lose it again. So we go from camber, so minimal camber to no camber. So the car is going, the car is turning well, and then understeering, and then turning, and then understeering again. And we have to manage all that with our line, because theoretically, and what we want to do is we kind of just want to fix our hands at a certain point for this nice wide arc left-hander. We don't want to be sawing at the wheel through here, because that's not fast. So once we get it through here, the way we adjust our line is we adjust via speed. So we're using the pedals to turn it, the car, not the steering wheel at this point. So we have steering angle in the car, but at this point, if we get off the pedals or add a dab of brake, it's going to bring the car in. If we're going too far in, we can add throttle and it will understeer and the front end of the car will push out, and we can adjust our line with the pedals. So that's what you'll see here. I'm off all the pedals, basically coasting initially. Find out that I'm going to be in a good spot, so I start adding the throttle, meaning that my front end of my car looks like it's going to be over the red sausage. So by adding throttle, it will cause the front end to kind of wash out a little. And then when I know I'm going to make the corner, boom, full throttle and ride it all the way through. The tendency through this corner is to basically, for me, is to turn in too late. So I turn in way too late thinking that I'm going to have this feeling from the initial part of the corner all the way through. When in reality, once I get about right here where my cursor is, I get understeer. So I never make it down to the apex and I just wash out. And then halfway through the corner, I'm like getting all the way out of the throttle and saying, please turn. That's not fast. So you got to predict it, got to plan for it, try to get that car down. It feels like you're going to run over this red sausage curbing on the inside, but you're not because of the understeer. Another viable line through here is a shallow line. So instead of going all the way out to the right side over near this curbing to take this wide entry, it's perfectly viable taking an entry from mid-track here and keeping it tight and just keeping it really, really tight. You travel less distance. You're not going quite as fast in the initial part of the corner, but that's okay because you're traveling less distance. It's kind of a wash. I don't think one way is faster than the other. It's just whatever you're most comfortable with. We need to get all the way on the left-hander, on the left side for this right-hander. The brake marker is going to be the 2 board. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get the car as straight as we can for when we actually get to braking. It's very difficult to do though, because we're on the way on the right side of the track to get over to the left and brake in a straight line, but we do what we can. So you can see I'm pretty much all the way over on the curbing and braking as straight as possible. My turn-in point is pretty much at the 1 board. Lots of camber on this right-hander. It's very, very fast. We want to apex pretty much right at the red curbing. So I turn in, use all the curbing. Lots of camber. So as soon as we turn in, we get a little bit of understeer initially when we turn in because there's not a whole lot of camber. And then all of a sudden it just gets camber, and the car just turns really well. So we got to understand that when we initially turn in, nothing, it's going to eventually come to us. The track will come to us. Play it at full throttle. Get the car all the way on the right for the last really short left-hander or really slow left-hander, tight. I like this white line right here before the 2 board as my brake marker. So boom, threshold braking, nice wide line. We want to keep the car way out to the right and try to apex this thing as late as possible. Use all the curbing. So you can actually see I'm apexing just past the red curbing here. First gear. Opening our hands and rolling the throttle on. If we just smash the throttle, you'll get into traction control like I kind of did there, which is slower. So we want to roll it on to keep our traction within the limits of traction control so it doesn't cut power. Use all the curbing, use all the run out. This is not a 1X. It's the fast way through there. And if we do it right, then we'll get a good run coming down the front straight to do it all over again. Any questions? No? Okay. I'm going to show it from cockpit. Lower the volume so I don't blow my ears out. There we go. Okay. And I'll try to talk through it. So screaming down the front straight, what we're going to do is we're going to treat it like a corner. So we're going to apex there under the bridge. And then we're looking for the 4 board right there. We're going to brake right just after it. I like the double apex, so there's apex 1, let it run, and then apex 2, throttle early. Look for the 2 board, brake, patience here, patience, now throttle. Late apex after the red curbing. 4th gear, turn in, wait, back on throttle early, late apex after the red curbing. We're going to brake just after the bridge, at the line after the 3 board, brake, turn in, what feels like early, ultimate apex late, use the curbing, 3rd gear on the way out. We're going to look for the 2 board. We're going to brush the brakes in 4th gear, turn in, and then back on throttle right at the compression point. Going up the hill, we're going to draw that straight line between the two curbs. Shift down to second gear, nice wide line, late apex in here, look for the trees. There's the trees, back on throttle. Let the car run. Nice wide line in here, understeer, connects up, and then understeer again. Get the car over to the left, brake at the two board, turn in. Apex right at the red curbing. Looking at the line before the two line, brake, downshift all the way to first gear. Late apex, nice easy throttle modulation to get a good run out, to get a run through the lap. Laguna Seca. So for folks keeping score at home, that's a 73-degree track temp, and that was a 121.2. I didn't make a custom setup for this, so I'm using, what setup am I using? I think I'm using a Road Atlanta setup or something like that, so shouldn't be too much different. The only things that I would notice on the setup after doing a couple of laps was it tends to bottom out at 6, and it tends to bottom out going through the bottom of the corkscrew. So if you want to avoid that, just raise the car up just a touch, but just make sure you're raising it at all four corners. You're not adding or subtracting rake, because that's going to affect how the car handles. Just raise it all up at the same time. All right, any questions for the track walk? You guys are experts here. Nothing? Okay, that's good. Yeah, I hope you guys are having fun. Any thoughts about the series so far? I know it's summer. I know participation's been down a little bit just because people are running around with the kiddos, but now the kids are back in school. Plenty of time to get in the sim now and get back to it, because we should have the next season coming up soon. I don't know when it's going to be announced, but keep your ears open. But
It's going to start back in January.
Oh, it's going to be, so we're not going to have anything for the rest of the year?
No,
Oh.
it's just team racing.
Well, there you go. I'm a liar. But you know, winter's coming. It's a good opportunity to brush up on your skills, do the team racing. It looks like Doug's putting in those really cool pop-up races that that people are able to participate in to do some time trials. I'm sure there's going to be something in the winter. There always is. Historically, it's always been kind of the what did we call it? The zone group challenge. I don't know what that's going to look like this year, if it even exists, but something will be there for us to do. And then always, you remember the wonderful thing about iRacing is we've got all these official races that you can go out there and race with your closest Europeans and go have fun with people that you don't know, and treat it as practice. That's the only way you're going to learn and get better at racing, is actually go racing. So it's a great opportunity to be able to just hop in a race, do some practice, go out there with the eye of, hey, I'm going to go learn how to do some racecraft. The best way to do it is to get out there with people you don't know that are of similar speed and go race them. And so have fun with it. If you have any questions on the whole iRacing thing in terms of how to do it, how to find races and stuff like that, just let me know. I'll try to guide you. But yeah, Laguna Seca this week. It should be a lot of fun. It's a track, like I said at the beginning. It's been in iRacing forever. A lot of people have a lot of experience here, and this car is a good balance for it. I mean, this track was built for GT cars, basically, so it should be a lot of fun to race this.
Chris, I noticed in the Andretti hairpin, or the between the two apexes that you're painting with your inside left. Can you talk about tire management on this track?
Yeah, so tire management in general on this track it's relatively okay. Now we've got a lot of left-handers because the track is going this way, so counterclockwise. So the left side is going to get, or sorry, the right side tires are going to wear quicker just because of the nature of the track of turning left more than right. But in general, the thing that I would say about the Andretti hairpin, at the beginning I said there were kind of two thoughts of two main lines through there. One of them is treated as one apex, which is the second apex, and that's the only apex that matters, and the first one doesn't matter. So you just drive it in super deep, diamond it late, and then kind of get a good run coming off the second one. The other theory or the other thought is it's a double apex corner, so you apex both of them at their proper points and keep it nice and tight and keep a constant radius between the two. Which one is better for tire wear? It's kind of 6 1/2 dozen of the other. They're both going to wear the same amount. You're turning the car at the end of the day the same amount of degrees. Whether you do it all at once or whether you do it over the course of a longer period, you're going to see a similar wear. So in terms of tire wear, I don't think I've ever sat here at Laguna Seca and been worried about tire wear. If you're going to change tires, if you're in Group C over the course of an hour, if you're going to change tires, you should be able to get 2 free ones. You may think about changing right side tires, but honestly, I probably would say, depending on your setup, change fronts. I have a feeling what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up overdriving the fronts more than anything, and just through understeer because of the camber changes here. And so I have a feeling your front tires are going to wear more than rights versus lefts. So think about that. The other thing I was going to say, the thing that I didn't mention was passing. Turn 1's a great opportunity to pass in general, just because you've got so much room and you're coming from so fast and it's so wide, and you have those multiple lines through here. But if you're defending, you definitely want to take the double apex approach. You don't want to just drive it in there and drive way deep and diamond the corner, because that's just inviting somebody to come down the inside and take the first corner faster and then park the car in front of you, and your advantage is gone. So make sure you're comfortable with both lines, but I would definitely take the double apex approach if you're being challenged. In general, turn 3, not really a passing zone. It can happen depending if somebody screws up turn Andretti hairpin. But if you're going too wide through this right-hander, both cars are going to be very slow. Same thing with turn 4. Again, if there's too wide going through here, very slow for both cars. The inside car has a little bit more of an advantage, but it's still going to be slow. Left-hander here, again, very slow, too wide through here. All these kind of wide sweeping corners, they're pretty much single file to get any kind of speed. Now here's where things tend to happen. People sometimes get a bad run or a good run, depending on your perspective, coming out of turn 5 leading up to turn 6. Let's say you get a good run on somebody coming up into turn 6 out of turn 5. Do you try to make a pass going into turn 6? My advice is don't try unless you can get pretty much completely by their car before the turn end point. Taking turn 6 too wide is just a recipe for disaster because there's just no room. So again, like I just said before on all those other turns, if you're too wide through this corner, both cars are going to lose 1.5 seconds, maybe even 2 seconds to the field through one corner because of how slow you'll have to take it. So even if you got a good run on the car in front and you can only basically get to like their door, don't do that because you're both going to end up slow through here. I would say just get out of the throttle, tuck back in, and focus on getting a good run coming through turn 6, and then you can draft all the way up the hill before the corkscrew and pass before the corkscrew. That way neither of you lose time to the field. So it would be getting a good run coming out of 5, swallowing your pride, getting back in line for turn 6, focus on getting a good run coming through turn 6, draft them all the way up the hill. And it's easy to get alongside someone up here, and then basically outbrake them coming at this point down into the corkscrew. This turn right here, this left-hander, is another opportunity to pass. It's really wide and there's a lot of lines through here, so it's very easy for a car to get on the inside and kind of hug the inside and take it away from another car. So this is actually a decent passing corner. This right-hander, probably not a good place to pass. Again, 2 cars going too wide through here, much like all the other sweepers here. It's just going to end up to being really slow. And then the final corner, I really wouldn't pass going into the final corner unless it's like the last lap or the second to last lap and you're fighting for the lead. Because again, 2 cars going through here is really slow. Not to mention that once you come through this corner, you've got the longest straightaway on the track on the front straight, so you have a great opportunity to get a good run coming out of the final corner, draft on your opponent, and then make a pass into probably the biggest passing opportunity, which is turn 1. Why not do that instead of sending it up into a tight left-hander that's going to hurt both you and the other car's speed if you guys don't touch? So those were my
Chris, there was a race, an IMSA race on internet. I think it was 2016 or something like that. It was a Porsche and a Corvette. And
yeah. One of the best spots. Yeah.
Final turn right there.
Yep. And didn't the Corvette get the worst of it? They got wrecked. They got turned.
It got obliterated.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's one of this turn right here is just, there's only one line through it, effective line, and that's the racing line. There's just no room to put two cars through there. You'll see people try to fight and dive all the time, but frankly, if I'm getting dove by a car, if I'm the leading car and somebody comes to the inside and shows that they're going to dive me in this corner, all I do is back it up. I just keep the car out a little bit more, let them dive this tight line, to which they're going to have to stop the car on the apex. And what I do is I just over-under them. I just keep it nice and wide, get my turn done out here, and then just out-accelerate them coming this way. I get the draft, I over-under them, and I'm probably leading going into turn 1 anyway. So it just doesn't make any sense unless it's the final corner of the race. That's a different story, because then there is no future corners.
Yeah, that YouTube that you were just talking about, that's Magnussen, Jan Magnussen and Bergmeister.
Yeah.
And the last 2 or 3 laps are just exhilarating. It's just worth looking up.
Yeah, it's one of the best racing you'll ever see, right?
Yeah.
But again, the reason that move happened was it was the final corner of the final lap.
Yeah.
And so there's no future corners. That's it. So, but unless it's that kind of situation, I just really wouldn't pass. I wouldn't attack someone into this corner because all the advantage comes after this corner. Why would you throw it in there and risk crashing, let alone being slow? So anyway, that's my take. It's kind of like we just did Le Mans, right? For people that are racing in the Opmo series, but like going into what's the tight corner at the end of Mulsanne? Is that Mulsanne corner? I'm guessing it's Mulsanne corner. The really tight one at the end of the big long straightaway that leads onto the next long straightaway. If you get a draft on somebody coming out of the second chicane on the run down to Mulsanne, and you make a pass before Mulsanne, guess what? You are now the leading car all the way down that big long straightaway going down into Indianapolis, where the car that you just passed is going to be able to draft you and probably pass you going into Indianapolis because of the draft. Never pass someone before Mulsanne. Always wait until after Mulsanne, and then you, as the following car, get the benefit of the draft before Indianapolis. You go through Indianapolis, and there's less likely that they're going to have a draft before the Porsche curves to get around you. That's how you make the pass stick, not by passing before Mulsanne. Even if you have the opportunity, it doesn't make any sense to do it. Same thing here. Even if you have the opportunity to get side by side with someone coming into this final corner, what's the point? Because they're going to draft all the way down the front straight and probably repass you going into turn 1. So I would much rather be the following car, get the advantage of the draft going down the main straight, and then get past them into turn 1. And then at that point, they can't really pass you until theoretically maybe the corkscrew. Maybe. So, yeah. It's just thinking multiple corners in ahead. Where's the advantage on the track? When you make a pass, you want it to stick. You don't want to just get repassed. So, but yeah, we can. That's the other thing. I don't know if I'm going to get YouTube banned or whatever for. No, everybody does reaction videos, right? Let's see here. Laguna Seca race. What was the name of one of the drivers? It was a flying lizard, right?
No, well, maybe it was Bergmeister was the Porsche, and Jan
There it
Magnussen
is.
was the Corvette.
Here it is. Yeah, Magnussen. So, I mean, it's a 10-minute video, so we won't get it. But you can see, coming through the final corner, right, the Corvette here has a draft all the way down the back straight. Not to mention, it's a vent, so at the top end is the advantage. But look, here's the pass opportunities going into turn 1. Nice and wide. Then he tries to get the over-under, which the Porsche does. Coming through turn 3. Not really an opportunity to make a pass because there's only one line through there. They're both doing it right. Same thing with 4. And then you're in the Corvette, you've got all the power in the world. So you have all the advantage on the straights, but not in the corners. So he's just waiting. There's no point in trying to force the issue. We're going into turn 6. Again, no point in trying to make a pass into turn 6 because it's so fast. But then here's the advantage going all the way up the hill. So you get that run coming off somebody on turn 6. The Porsche was able to put it in a defensive spot.
Move to 8 minutes 30 seconds, Chris.
8 minutes, okay.
30 seconds.
For the corkscrew, he's got to stay right there, and I guarantee you he'll put a fender on him this time. Last lap out of the corkscrew. Through turn 9, the left-hander, a right-hander, turn 10, the very fast turn 10, then the heavy braking 411. If Magnus
There's a
is gonna
punt
get
that
the job
precedes
done,
it.
it has to be right now. Too far back. Less a dive bomb.
So he doesn't dive it.
He's gonna try
Oh, there's the bump. Push.
Hits him at the exit, loosens him up. Bergmeister drives him to the wall, down the front straightaway, rubbing into the wall, and he crashes in
Yeah.
big. Oh, they're not gonna like that one. No one is gonna like that one. The checkered flag.
Well, you hate to see it, but they're racing hard. And the thing about this video is, it's 10 minutes of them, like they do like for 4 solid laps, going back and forth, bumping each other. Like this was all coming to a boil. It wasn't just because he got bumped right here, coming out of the final corner, going through the final corner, that set him off. It was like everything leading up to this point. But at this point, right, even with the bump, and the reason the bump occurred is not because the bump didn't occur because the Corvette is trying to bump him out of the way. The bump occurred because the Porsche, I think what's going on is the Porsche has run out of tire effectively, so it's just slow in the corners. And what Magnussen is doing is he's parking it on the apex because the only advantage that the Corvette can have is getting the run out of the final corner. So what Magnussen's doing is saying, I'm not going to be able to beat him in a drag race coming out of this corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to park the car on the apex, so he has to lift and get out of the throttle at apex, thus basically neutering his run down the straight because he wants to be full throttle, and if he has to lift halfway through, he has no momentum going through the corner to make a pass, right? So that's why he's parking it here. And as a result, the Corvette doesn't want to do that, so he bumps him because he doesn't want to give that momentum up. So you can see the gap close. That's the bump. But this isn't cool. I mean, he's alongside. He pushes him all the way down to the wall, and then turns him. I mean, that's just terrible at that point. On the Porsche. And I don't know what actually ended up happening, in terms of penalties or whatever. I remember there were some news articles that got published after it. And I don't remember what the saying was, but everything up until that point was just amazing racing. I recommend checking it out and watching the racecraft between the two cars. I also understanding that the Vet and the Porsche make their speeds in different ways, and that's what led to the really exciting racing, because the Vet was very fast in a straight line, and that's its advantage, and the Porsche is really good in the corners and under braking, so that's its advantage. So they make speed different ways. If they're in the same car, it's much more difficult to get by someone and make a pass on someone, but it's good old-fashioned racing. So back on Speed TV, if you can remember those days. So, but yeah, great video. Good point. All right, guys. Yeah, any other questions in terms of Laguna Seca, how to get around here, things to think about? All right, hearing none. Cool. If you have any questions, just let me know. I remember seeing somebody post about a practice session going up. Let me stop the recording, so people don't have to listen to this stuff. But thanks for watching. If you're watching this in TV land, if you have any questions, let me know on Discord. Be happy to answer them. We'll be coming back with classrooms once a new season gets announced, or whatever we're doing for the winter. I'll be doing classrooms on Mondays here on Discord and our PCA Discord at 6 p.m. same time Central Time. But I will make a post and a reminder before those go live. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll stop it.